Good morning and welcome to Live at the Legislature. Each week we give you a chance to hear directly from state legislators, senators about concerns, issues, and legislation here at the Capitol. Last week, the legislative Keiki Caucus introduced its bill package to the public. Here to talk about the Keiki Caucus, its package, and some other issues is Senator Carl Rhodes. Senator Rhodes represents the 13th District, which includes downtown, Chinatown, Nu'uanu, Punchbowl, and Liliha. Good morning, Senator.
Morning.
First of all, can you tell us what the Keiki Caucus is and who its members are?
So the Keiki Caucus is made up of both government officials, members of the legislature. There are 6 senators who are members and 15 House members. And in addition, there's 100 community activists from various groups that participate. So during the summer, well, first of all, what the purpose of the Keiki Caucus, it's been around for 25 years. This is our 25th anniversary. My predecessor, Susie Chun Oakland, was instrumental in forming and guiding it for many, many years. And the real reason for its existence is that, of course, kids don't vote, and of course their parents do, of course, look out for their interest most of the time, and forcefully most of the time. There are some, of course, parents who abuse their children or neglect them, and that's part of our goal is to help with those. But I think the real impact is that, unlike with AARP, which is a lobby, a strong and important lobby for people your and my age, the Keiki don't have anything like that. And so our feeling, or the reason that I joined and was involved, have become involved more recently, is because I feel like the Keiki need to have their lobbyists too, because especially the first 3 years of life are incredibly important in how your life is going to go. If you are on the right track after 3 years and you're headed on an upward trajectory, you're probably going to be fine. If you're scuffling already at 3 years, yes, you can make up for some of the problems you might have later on in life, but it's very, very difficult. So that first 3 years is very important, and it also, of course, shows just how important it is loving parents are too.
You said it's been together for 25 years. Can you give us some examples of the kind of efforts they've led in the past that led to changes?
Well, it's hard to characterize it in broad strokes because, as you can imagine, with a group that big, you have people going off all in different directions, and all of them are interested in the welfare of children. But you do get, for example, this year we have a bill on fluoridation. We have a bill on homelessness to try to help the kids whose parents are suffering from homelessness, and we have bills on tobacco. I would say anti-tobacco efforts are probably a really salient feature over the years, because if you look at the numbers on the public health side, if you want to improve public health, it's almost always a safe bet to try to reduce tobacco use. Right. Mm-hmm. It's the carnage caused by tobacco is just incredible, mm-hmm. And if you keep the kids from starting in the first place, almost 90% of smokers start before they're 21. So if you can keep kids from starting, then you save them and all of society, right, all kinds of problems.
Mm-hmm. What else do you have in the package this year?
Well, for me, I've been focusing on tobacco again. In the previous segment, Chair Takumi mentioned flavored tobacco. Mm-hmm. We have that in our package on the Keiki Caucus side too. More than 80% of children if they start smoking or using tobacco or nicotine products like vaping, mm-hmm, they start with a flavored right, version of it, and we would ban that to try to stop people, get people to say that the other way around, to keep people from ever starting. The other tobacco one that we're working on, which I think is really important, is a zone around schools and playgrounds where merchants will not be able to sell tobacco products, to make it as hard as possible for kids to find them. Mm-hmm. And another one that's important to me that's not tobacco related necessarily is a 0 to 3 court. So the court already exists. This is really more for, as I mentioned, some parents, unfortunately, the vast majority of parents do the best that they know, and they love their kids, and the research indicates that that's exactly what needs. They need at least one adult that just adores them. Mm-hmm. And if you have 2 adults who adore them, that's even better. But every once in a while you get a parent who's may have trouble themselves with substance abuse or mental illness, who doesn't take good care of their children. And that's where the 0 to 3 court comes in generally, is they try to look out for the best interest of those kids and intervene where they need to, and unfortunately sometimes take them away from their parents if it's bad enough.
Oh, so that's the 0 to 3 is a way of diverting parents who have trouble into a separate program to make sure that the kids stay.
Essentially, yeah. The court, of course, always has jurisdiction over neglected and abused kids, but this is a more focused way to look at that particular age group, which, as I mentioned before, is incredibly important.
So how does the caucus come up with its package? Individuals suggest, you guys fight it out?
There's not a whole lot of fighting, which is, in the legislative process, as someone, I think Senator Schatz pointed out a couple of weeks ago, that politics really is a proxy for violence. It's a way to avoid actually having violence, but you can get pretty heated sometimes. The Keiki Caucus tends to be pretty mellow about that. The members, both the members on the legislative side and the members in the community, they understand the importance of what they're doing in terms of trying to help the really young ones, and they also realize that it's a multifaceted issues, and there's a lot of different angles that come into play, and for different kids, different things are important, right? So we spend the summer, we spend the interim basically. We start, me as the co-convener on the Senate side, and Representative Mizuno on the House side. We start meeting in the summer shortly after session ends, and we start looking at what we think. We do a postmortem of what happened last year, see what's still on the table in terms of issues that we need to do, and then people from the community. It's largely driven from the community. The advocates community, and they look at, they make suggestions about what we should try to do this year. And some of it actually comes from Keiki. There's the Children and Youth Day and the Children and Youth, what's it called? The Children and Youth, they have a convention every year too that's separate. And so some of the ideas actually come from youth, which is good because they're the ones who understand their problems probably the best of anybody. But so over the summer we work on these issues, and near the end we vote on them. The whole community, first the advocates community does, and if they're okay with each of the proposals, then the members of the Keiki Caucus and the legislature vote on them too. And so there's kind of a two-step process, and then you end up with this package of bills. So this year we had 19 bills, 5 resos, and there's a lot of work put into coming up with those.
Okay, well, you're also the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee. I
am.
And as Judiciary Chair, there are some perennial issues, one of which is legalization of marijuana.
That's perennial, yep.
So it's going to come up again this year. Do you think it has a better chance of passing this year than before?
I do. I mean, you never know. Sometimes an issue you think is ripe for passage in the legislature, nothing happens. My feeling is that the stars are pretty well aligned for a full legalization this year. But we'll find out. I am going to hear, on this Thursday, I will be hearing a full legalization bill, and we'll see, where we're at in terms of whether I have the votes on the committee, and then of course when it goes to the next committee and onto the Senate floor, whether the votes are there. We already have medical marijuana. We've had that. I mean, it's been legal for 17 or 18 years now. But just recently, we've started making it. We passed additional implementing legislation a couple years ago, so you can get it legally as opposed to having to buy it in the black market. That system is up and sort of running. I mean, it's not totally mature at this point, but we do have that example of what to do. And then, of course, there's I believe 11 other states at this point that have full legalization. So we don't have to be the guinea pig. I think it's pretty clear at this point that Pakalolo is 100% available on the black market now, and we meaning the United States government and the state government, have spent decades trying to eradicate it, trying to keep people from using it, and we've failed miserably. So I think at some point you just have to say, we need to try something else. My feeling is we need to start treating it more like alcohol and tobacco, which, of course, neither one of them are really good for you, and neither is Pakalolo. It does have some medicinal value, but especially for younger people before their brains are fully developed, it's not really very good for you. So I think what we have to do is take some of the money from the taxes that we'll earn from it and funnel that back into education on the risks of using it, especially when you're young.
It's been so long, and as you said, 11 other states have legalized. Why is it taking so long in Hawaii? Do you have any idea?
Well, that's a good question. There's a number of issues like that where I don't quite understand why they haven't moved faster. I think the Capitol building is behind the electorate a little bit on this one. I would guess, I haven't seen polling recently, but from a couple of years ago, it was pretty clear from polling that most people, a majority of people of the state residents would prefer to see it legalized and taxed. But sometimes, we don't like to. You can only handle so many controversial issues each year, and so we've dealt with controversial issues over the last few years, as everyone here is well aware. But the Pakalolo is, well, I think the other reason Pakalolo didn't come up, full legalization didn't come up more recently, is because we just did medical marijuana, and that whole process took a long time to roll out and get on its feet, and there was some hesitancy to move forward with full legalization while we were still trying to roll that out. So I think that probably explains it some too.
Okay, and as quickly as you can give me the definition, difference between legalization and decriminalization.
So decriminalization would just be, instead of being an actual criminal penalty, you just get a fine. Full recreational legalization would be, if you have a very small amount of it, it's perfectly fine.
Right.
There's no crime, there's no violation, there's no fine, there's no nothing.
Okay, well, thank you for being with us and for this great conversation.
Thank you.
This morning.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you on Live at the Legislature.